Welcome to today's deep dive into Mexican asset protection. We're pulling from the guide Fideicomiso in Mexico, Guía Completa. Our mission for you today is to decode the Fideicomiso.
Right, we're looking at what it actually is and how it helps you protect, manage, and, well, conditionally pass on your wealth.
Because usually, passing on assets means trapping your family in this messy public courtroom battle.
Yeah, exactly. Probate is rough.
But what if you could put your assets into this legally impenetrable lockbox, one that executes your exact wishes for decades and completely avoids that whole probate nightmare?
And that's really the core advantage here. Under Mexican commercial law, a fideicomiso isn't just a fancy savings account. It creates an autonomous patrimony.
Let's break down that word autonomous, because if I put my house or my business into this lockbox, you're saying I technically don't own it anymore?
Correct. The second you place assets in the trust, they legally leave your personal estate. You act as the fideicomitante, which just means the person funding it.
Okay, so I'm the fideicomitante, then who actually owns it?
Well, you transfer the legal title to the fiduciario. And in Mexico, that has to be an authorized financial institution, like a bank.
So the bank holds the keys.
Right. They manage the assets for the benefit of the fideicomisario or the final beneficiary.
So because the assets are in this protected legal bubble and neither I nor the bank own them as personal property, they're completely shielded from my personal debts.
Yes, they are immune to seizures, completely shielded.
But wait, transferring the actual legal title of my house to a bank sounds intensely complicated. Why go through all that banking setup if I could just, write a traditional will and be done with it?
Well, because a traditional will practically guarantees your family ends up in what's called a juicio sucesorio.
Right, a probate process.
Exactly. It's a judicial procedure to prove the will and distribute everything. That takes months or even years. It becomes public record, and it eats up the inheritance with lawyer fees.
Which sounds awful.
It is. But a fideicomiso is a private contract, so it bypasses the courts entirely.
Which brings up my favorite way to visualize this from the guide. Think of a traditional will as a photo. It's a static snapshot of who gets what on the exact day you die. But a fideicomiso is a video.
I love that analogy. It's dynamic. You're giving the bank ongoing conditional instructions.
So it's not just handing over a lump sum.
Not at all. You can say, only release these funds to my grandson if he graduates college, or pay out this specific amount every month.
Oh, wow. So you have long-term control.
Right. You can even appoint a technical committee. That's a trusted group of advisors who direct the bank on managing complex business assets over time.
Still, giving up direct legal control of my property on paper sounds risky. I mean, there has to be a catch. Even doing simple paperwork for the house would mean I have to get the bank to sign off on it, right?
Yeah, that is a major trade-off. You lose direct domain. So everyday administrative tasks become a hassle.
Like getting permits or dealing with utilities?
Exactly. Plus, setting this up requires specialized legal and fiscal advisors. And you're paying initial setup fees plus annual maintenance to the bank.
Right. The banks always get their cut. And what about taxes? If I don't own the house anymore, doesn't the government view that as me selling the house to the bank?
It absolutely can, yeah. The trust itself is usually fiscally transparent.
Meaning the lockbox doesn't pay income tax.
Right. The beneficiaries do when they actually receive the money. However, the initial transfer is tricky.
How so?
Well, if you don't retain specific rights, or you aren't the sole beneficiary, the government sees that transfer of legal title as a taxable sale.
Oh, yikes. So for you listening, the decision really comes down to what you actually need. If you have relatively low-value assets and just want a simple, low-cost solution today, a traditional will totally gets the job done.
But if you need your wealth delivered discreetly, immediately upon your passing, and managed with highly specific conditions, the fideicomiso really is unmatched.
Right. You bypass the courts entirely.
Exactly. You ensure your wealth acts exactly how you want it to.
Which leaves you with one final philosophical question to ponder. If this tool allows you to create that video, a dynamic set of rules that dictate strict conditions for your wealth decades after you are gone, at what point does controlling the future from beyond the grave become a burden for your heirs rather than a gift?
It's true. You lock them into your rules, but, well, the world outside that lockbox keeps changing.
Definitely something to chew on before you lock away your legacy.